It's the real news. I'm Aaron Mate. Israel has committed one of its worst massacres of Palestinians in years. At least 52 people were killed and more than 2,400 wounded when Israeli forces opened fire on protesters taking part in the Great March of Return in Gaza. Israel has followed that up with airstrikes. The attacks come as U.S. officials have gathered in Jerusalem for the opening of the U.S. embassy there. Joining me from Gaza City is Dr. Basem Naim, former Minister of Health in Gaza, and he took part in organizing for the Great March of Return. Welcome, Dr. Naim. There have been shootings of Palestinian protesters throughout the Great March of Return for the past several weeks, but today was by far the worst. I believe the death toll today surpasses the combined toll from all previous weeks. Your response to what we've seen today in Gaza?
I think this was a prepared massacre by the Israeli security forces because what we have seen is immediately shooting on peaceful protesters without any signs of violence from the Palestinian sides. As you might have seen in the media, thousands and thousands of peaceful protesters, men and women, elderly and children, marched towards the fence to call for freedom, for a dignified and decent life. Without, as I said, any excuse, they have started to shoot. More than 52 killed and more than 2,400 injured. Many of them are seriously injured. Many of them will, for their rest of life, be handicapped.
What do you say to Israeli officials who claim that they were acting in self-defense, that Palestinians were trying to cross their border into Israel?
First, what does it mean across the borders? If you live, 2 million Palestinians live in the biggest open-air prison, according to the former Prime Minister Jordan, or you live in one of the new concentration camps in the 21st century, without any access to the outside world, poverty above 80%, unemployment around 50%, 95% of our water is poisoned and is not suitable for a human being. 95% of our beach is spoiled because of sewage water. Those people are moving towards the fence to call for a dignified and decent life. They cannot continue accepting to die slowly and silently. Second, what does it mean, fence? Israel itself, it doesn't recognize this as a border. They call it fence because still they are not recognizing it as a border. And if we will accept this as a border, according to the 1948 ceasefire, we have at least more than 200 kilometers still beyond the fence put by Israel between Gaza and the Israeli territories. Therefore, we cannot talk about self-defense. Finally, if you, for example, today, 52 killed, 2,400 or more than that injured, no casualties on the other side. What does it mean, self-defense? If no one of those who has been killed or injured was a real threat for the snipers or the tanks or the aircrafts, you can here mention one of the martyrs of today who has been killed. He is a double amputee he lost two of his legs in the aggression of Israel against Gaza Strip in 2008. And now he has been killed near the border. What can a double amputee man, what can he causing a threat for an army which is fully armed from head to toes? Therefore, you cannot at all talk about self-defense.
And he's not the first amputee to be killed in protests at the border. As well as, I believe there were 6 children killed today in these protests. I mentioned this being one of the worst massacres of Palestinians in years. From what you've seen and heard, how does today compare to previous mass killings by Israel in Gaza?
I was there for hours near the fence, and within this big mass of people who moved toward the fence, calling us again for a dignified life, for lifting the siege immediately and unconditionally. Again, without any excuse, they have started to shoot, not only snipers, but even tanks started to shoot against civilians, innocent, peaceful protesters. In one shot, for example, they have killed 13 young people, including children. In one shot, I think those protesters at no stage were causing any threat to the soldiers or to the army at all.
I want to go to a clip of Jared Kushner speaking today at this ceremony in Jerusalem, because as this was going on, you had U.S. and Israeli officials and other visitors from around the world gathering for the opening of the U.S. embassy in Jerusalem. And Jared Kushner mentioned the protests in Gaza.
On December 6th, President Trump was very clear that his decision and today's celebration do not reflect a departure from our strong commitment to lasting peace, a peace that overcomes the conflicts of the past in order to give our children a brighter and more boundless future. As we have seen from the protests of the last month and even today, those provoking violence are part of the problem and not part of the solution.
So that's Jared Kushner speaking today in Jerusalem. Dr. Naim, if you could respond to what he says there, that those provoking violence are part of the problem.
It is really shameful if a man who is representing the United States of America, who should defend human rights, democracy, and dignity of people around the world, if he describing innocent, peaceful protesters, people, 2 million people, I am not describing this as the biggest open-air prison or as a jail or as a collective punishment. This is the description of the United States, the United Nations. UN said Gaza in 2020 and maybe earlier is unlivable. If those people who are moving peacefully, until today, we are talking about more than 44 days protesting against the occupation near the fence, Israel was not able to have one picture of someone who is using any kind of arms, pistols or gun machines or so on. I mean, they were not able to have one photo of a man or a woman who was using real violence. Okay, they might throw stones, they might using, burning wires, tires or so on, but it is not violence. The violence, the terrorism is imprisonment of 2 million people, the siege imposed in Gaza. This is the real violence, and this is a crime against humanity, by the way. This is not our description. This is the description of Goldstone, who has written the very famous report after the 2008 aggression on Gaza. I mean, the real violence is to besiege 2 million innocent people and to deal with them as an animal farm and to prevent them from free movement. A patient in Gaza have to wait more than 70 days to get a license to pass through areas, the checkpoint between Gaza and Israel for a treatment abroad. This is the real violence. Therefore, it is shameful from a man who is representing the United States, which should defend democracy, human rights, and dignity, to call about, to talk about the Gazans or the Palestinians in general as violent, provocating people.
All right, Dr. Naim, we'll pause there and come back in part 2. My guest is Dr. Basem Naim, the former Minister of Health in Gaza.